Front bench speeches. Patricia Gibson for the SNP.
Thank you, Mr Chair. And I want to begin by congratulating the Honourable Lady for Edinburgh North and Leith, who has long had an interest in this issue, as has the Honourable Member for Stirling. There has been a consensus today, a rare thing indeed, that the UK's food security is fragile and the resilience is not what it needs to be. The UK is not self-sufficient in food production. It imports 48% of the total food consumed, and the proportion is rising. Therefore, as a food trading nation, we rely on both imports and a thriving agricultural sector to feed ourselves and drive economic growth. But just how fragile our food security is has been shown by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has also heightened fears of a global food shortage, as the Honourable Member for Tiverton, Honiston and other members have said today. Indeed, the UN World Food Programme Executive has warned, as the Honourable Lady for Edinburgh North and Leith reminded us, has warned of an incoming hell on earth. With maize and wheat prices rising in March, soaring by 43% and 83% respectively, and with more rises likely, UK consumers face food price rises of 15%, given that Russia has more agricultural land than all other European countries. This is combined with the fact that Ukraine has the most arable land in Europe, with 25% of the world's black soil, which is particularly fertile and has helped Ukraine to earn its place as a global agricultural powerhouse. So between them, Ukraine and Russia account for a significant proportion of crop production globally and an even bigger share of global crop exports, as we've heard this afternoon in some detail. Given the situation in Ukraine, supply chains have been severely disrupted, which has exposed the UK's food insecurity. And I think every member today who has spoken has highlighted this. Farmers across the UK are deeply concerned about surging fertiliser costs and have been since last year. And now, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the situation has worsened further, as prices have increased by almost 50% to £1,000 a tonne from £650. This could lead farmers to use less fertiliser, which in turn will affect production, which is the last thing anyone wants when imports are threatened. So it's vital that the UK government steps in now to mitigate food insecurity. Brexit means that UK farmers will miss out on access to a proposed €1.5 billion emergency fund to counter food insecurity. So what we need is an equivalent and proportional UK fund to be established at speed, which can be accessed by devolved governments to support our farmers and help tackle the food insecurity that we've heard so much about today. This could have been done by the Chancellor in his statement last week, but sadly it was not. The EU has pledged to work to improve self-sufficiency of EU food supplies, and we need the same pledge backed by concrete action from the UK government. We need to end the policy of increasing reliance on imports, whilst at the same time bringing in Brexit checks on food imported from the EU from July this year, even as industry warns that this could well further disrupt the flow of food imported into the UK. I'm sure the Minister can see that creating disruption to food imports at the very time when global food insecurity is a real threat is both dangerous and self-sabotaging. So at the very least, implementing import controls until food security can be guaranteed must be delayed. But rising costs across the board is weakening food production, even before you factor in the impact of Brexit on food production, as articulated by the Honourable Member for Stirling. There is no disguising the fact that there is genuine alarm and concern that the UK government has failed to suitably respond to the imminent global food security crisis, and that has to change. And that's what all members today who have spoken, I believe, want to see. As the Honourable Member for Stirling pointed out, this matter is not new, but has grown ever more urgent and is now an emergency. The government must reset the priority of domestic food production, because anything else exposes the UK to continued and increasing risk of food insecurity. and that was so well articulated by the Honourable Lady from Edinburgh North and Leith. Food insecurity is, however, a global concern. Ukraine is a rich and fertile land, but with the current war in that nation, it's estimated that 30% of the population is in need of life-saving food assistance. As the single biggest supplier of food to the World Food Programme, the war also means that this is adding to that programme's food procurement challenges as it seeks to deliver rations to the people of Yemen, Chad and Niger, but is now also feeding 3 million hungry people in or around Ukraine, as the Honourable Lady from Edinburgh North and Leith explained. In that terrible context, the issue of food waste raised by the Honourable Lady and so many people who spoke today, the issue of food waste must be tackled with renewed vigour. We need to hear more about that from the Minister. I hope we hear more about that from the Minister when she gets to her feet. Food shortages from Ukraine will exacerbate existing food crises across the world, and as the Honourable Lady from Bristol East says, this is a world which must also be mindful of the ever-present impact of climate change on food production itself. Now, G7 leaders have promised to address this global issue, but there's no detail as yet, despite the fact that this matter is urgent and critical. This government needs to act urgently to protect the UK's food security, and internationally we need urgent action as well on the global food crisis. Astonishingly, it is in this context that the UK government has cut its international aid budget. That cut needs to be reversed, and the importance of doing so grows more urgent by the day. So I look forward to the Minister setting out the government's vision as to what it will do domestically and internationally to address this urgent and growing crisis, and what concrete action we can expect DEFRA to take on this most important and pressing of issues. And I know in this debate all the participants have given her much food for thought. Ultimately, our food security is indeed inextricably linked to our national security, and the government's policies must reflect that.
Daniel Zeigler.